Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Let's Design Diablo. This is episode 15, where we work on the globes behind the mana globe and the health globe. Those effects that are sort of look like fog or mist or something like that, coming up out of the globes and around them into the other interface elements. And we also begin to work on a new idea for the skill areas in the bottom left and the bottom right. I do have to apologize. I'm feeling a little bit sick, so my voice is not quite what it normally is. But anyway, this is where we start. Feeling really good about it. The textures in the middle, I think, are really nice, and I think the angel and demon are really fitting in nicely with the rest of the design. They're not, I think they're not too distracting, and you do notice that in the D1 and D2 interfaces that the angel and demon, or whatever they are, the gargoyles, are not, while they're very kind of an really important design element, they're not overwhelming. They don't sort of own the whole interface. You sort of forget that they're there, actually, after a while, as important as they are. So, we don't want them to be the focal point, and I think in color and in texture, they're sort of blending in nicely with everything else. So there's a little bit of the flag hanging down from that horn from its original artwork. So I just went ahead and cut that out. And we're just kind of tidying up that area. Oh, and we're still going through this project now of evaluating whether or not we want to keep or get rid of each individual layer. So we have a layer that is nothing on it. It's just exclamation points, and that just shows me where I am in the process of going through all the layers. And as I move up, I just drag that up. And we're looking at each one of these to see whether we want to keep or throw away what's there. A lot of it is stuff that's been hidden or covered over or whatever, that's just taking up room in the Photoshop file and making it a little bit unwieldy. So we'll be finding those things and just getting rid of those. I feel like I have a frog in my throat here. This is a little bit of a border around the bottom left skill icon area. So we got rid of that. And now this is another one of those glows from the D3 logo. So we want to keep one of those. I think I end up maybe remasking this one. Probably shouldn't have to do that with the number of them that I had before, but I don't know what happened to them all, so we'll just keep this one as it is. And still thinking about the gem arch versus some other treatment for the skill icon area. Right now in the bottom right, you see that we're using that other different type of ornamentation, sort of pointing downwards, and that's fine. I don't think it looks as nice as the gem arch on the other side, but then again, I'm not sure I want to use that either. So there's going to be a lot of experimentation coming up in this video and the videos to come with what is happening in the bottom right and the bottom left. It's again one of those situations in which you get something looking really nice, and in this case I think it's the what am I doing here? In this case, what's looking really nice, I think, is the middle area. And so now we bring the rest of it, and we work to bring the rest of the design up to that level. And I don't think... I do actually like the bottom left and bottom right, but there's something about it that's just not totally working or doing it for me. It's hard to kind of put into words, but I think it's nice. There's certainly nothing wrong with it, but I don't think it reaches the same level of quality as that middle area now. So we're going to embark on a journey to redesign the bottom left and bottom right. but not all of that happens today. So this Diablo I keep using in different ways, not for its intended purpose to show Diablo, but for the textures that are in it. And I wanted to simulate that same glow, that same reddish glow that's on the left in blue, on the right, on the sort of on the inside area of the middle section. There's a reddish glow in the middle, just to the right of the health globe. That sort of looks like the color from the globe is being reflected onto the rocks. And I want to simulate that with the blue on the right in a very subtle way. And so we're using that layer to do that. I think being relatively successful. And we don't want to overdo it, because again, that's going to be an area where I think we're going to be presenting text to the player. So we don't want this to be overwhelming, to interfere with that at all. I just want to give it a hint of color. And all this is happening while we're going through and doing the layers. So I was pretty, well, just to finish that point, I was pretty happy about how we could multitask in that way, going through the layers and also making progress with the design at the same time. And I was super happy to figure out just then that Photoshop now has this search feature, which includes layer names. So that's huge, because when you're working on a file with this many layers, you oftentimes can't find the layer you want in the layer list, and sometimes when you right click on the canvas itself, you still can't get it. You still can't get the layer you want. And so if you know the name of the layer or some portion of the name of the layer, now you can search for it that way. So that's pretty cool. I have no idea when they put that in, but happy that they did. Now we're looking at this drop shadow, see if we want to keep that. These are little things. So we're using that search feature just to jump back to the layer with the exclamation points, because we're jumping around a bit. Some of this is a little bit boring, so I apologize, because there's a lot of layers that just aren't doing anything. So I'm trying to figure out where are they, and a lot of them they're nowhere, or they're somewhere you can't see them. So there's not a lot of activity when that happens. Doing a lot of saving as well, because the Photoshop file a couple streams ago was being a bit temperamental. So now we're seeing how much of this red glow we want. It's really cool, the sort of smoky nature of this effect that is currently showing. But I think it's a little bit too much. We don't want it to interfere too much with the gameplay area. And people far more talented than I could potentially, animate something like that. Either it happening subtly all the time while you're playing, or when a specific effect is on you. I don't know what exactly that would be, but if there's some kind of life drain effect happening, maybe your life is evaporating up and out of that sphere. That would be so cool. And I think there's a lot of potential for games to utilize a more interesting interface effect like that. You don't see many games doing that. In fact, I can't even think of one that does it. It probably is. I don't have a lot of time to play video games. I do still play quite a bit, but I wish I had more time to explore for this type of thing, but it's certainly very hard to do. But I think it really, really enhances the player experience when the interface is taken so seriously by the developer and the artist. It's not just what's happening in the gameplay area, it's how you're playing the game, and the interface is how you play the game. And it's not only do I think it should look amazing, but I think the interface could, extra credit bonus points to the developer, react more in a more dynamic way with what the player's doing in the gameplay area. Like if their life's being drained, maybe you see an effect on the health globe where the health is sort of like evaporating out of the globe, like we just saw a moment ago, with a more dramatic sort of, I don't know what you call it, like steam or evaporation or glow, animated glow coming out of the globe. Just an idea, but that's what we're here to do, is to float some ideas. So on the right hand side with the angel, the glow effect is a bit different. It's going behind her wing, which I like because it gives it a little bit of asymmetry. I think it's consistent because on the left you notice the glow coming up and out of the globe is going behind the Neiman guy's wing. It's just not the same shape. So on the right we're being consistent and we're having it go behind her wing. It's more of a softer glow, and I forget if I addressed that. Like the glow on the left has some intricacies to it. You could see that there's brighter parts and darker parts. Looks more realistic, I think. On the right, it's just, I think I just painted a blue with a blue brush back there, so it's not quite as interesting. I think we do address that eventually, but I'm not exactly sure where. Always playing around with this glow. It's pretty cool. I think we'll end up using it again somewhere. If you didn't see before, that layer is actually what's being used underneath the mana and health globes to give it that little bit of fade out at the very bottom of the screen. And on the right, I just changed the color to be blue. So just taking each layer, and again, this is a little bit dull, so I apologize, but I'm just taking each layer, moving it around, see if we want to keep it or not. One thing I like about getting rid of the gem arches over the skill areas is that it would really bring attention to the one in the center. Or if we ditch that one in the bottom and the middle, we could have that interface element free to use wherever we wanted. Sort of not sure if it's going to work in the bottom and the middle, just because I don't know, it might interrupt like the way that the text looks back there. Something like that. So I'm not sure it's going to finalize. It's going to be there in the end. And if we can avoid using it over the skill areas, then we'll have that to use somewhere else. I hope I moved that mana globe back down because I nudged it up a bit there. Now, so I'm messing with this texture and it's just not, I don't know, it's not clicking. It's not bad. I think it's definitely in the right direction. Something rocky and natural looking, but It's just not really like coming together. Which is totally fine. It just means we need to do something else, which we will. So I'm using these sort of faded out curves of the gem arch thing as a divider around the skill area. But there's just too many layers down there right now. I'm just sort of digging out all these layers that aren't really doing that much. So just get them all out there, get them all hidden or moved, and kind of like start over almost with this. This is where it gets a little bit tough, but also a little bit fun, because you have part of the design I'm really happy with, which is the middle. And now we're going through the process of making everything that good. And so it's kind of it's challenging. And remember, the middle was nothing without the sides to begin with. We didn't even have a middle for a long time. So one thing sort of informs the next thing, makes it better, and then that in turn informs that original thing to get better. So it's a ping pong back and forth. It takes forever, but I really think it's worth it in a game like this that's hopefully going to see, well, not this, because what I'm doing is not going to see the light of day probably ever, but pretending, just putting ourselves in the shoes of Blizzard creating a Diablo game. You want the kind of longevity that Diablo 2 had and Diablo 1 had. We're talking like a decade or more of many millions of people playing it. So it's super worthwhile, in my opinion, to give this an incredible amount of thought and attention. I'm only one person doing it a little bit every day, which should just go to show that it's totally possible to make this look really good. There are very, very talented people out there, especially people working at Blizzard, who just need to be given, I don't know what it is, the creative freedom to carry this out. But it's not easy. I mean, this is just one part of a very, very complicated endeavor to create a game like this. So it's not easy, but it is definitely possible. So I keep going back to that little skill square. I always think like, oh, this is a safe choice. Maybe this will work. But it's like too, I don't know, it's too safe. It's too even, I guess. It's not broken enough for this look of this interface. I'm trying to think about what sort of dividers could be used. Now, a lot of people have said that, well, not that many people, but some people have said that, they really want the 1, 2, 3, 4 rather than the right and left mouse button to activate your skills. And that's fine. I'm not trying to say one's really better than the other, although I do prefer the original. I do have a lot of opinions that I could get into about why I think the former, the right and left mouse button activation is more befitting of the Diablo franchise than the 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think it has a lot to do with not like what's more comfortable to do, because that question has to do with I think how often you're pressing those buttons. If it's a skill that's like in Diablo 1 or Diablo 2 where you're just pumping it all the time and there's no cooldown, you probably want that on a mouse button, not a keyboard bind. But anyway, the purpose of this project is not to say this game should not have the 1, 2, 3, 4 system. It should have the right and left mouse button system and skill selection of D1 and D2. The purpose is to show that this interface can look real good in a dark and Diablo-looking way. So I'm not really trying to push one sort of development choice over another. I just prefer this, but that's not the idea. I'm not under any delusions about knowing what the right way to go is there, although I do have some opinions on it. But since it's sort of, since this is coming from my brain for the most part, why not just do it the way I would prefer it in the style of D1 and D2. So that's what we're doing. But again, that's not the core purpose. The core purpose is to show what a Diablo themed interface would look like. So we're working on this divider, which is super important, and I actually like this thin little divider I'm playing with right now. You'll see I don't want to give anything away, but to the extent that anyone cares, I don't want to give anything away. But we do blow this up later. But it's got some promise, and I think something like this could definitely be utilized elsewhere in the interface as we move on eventually to doing maybe a inventory, equipment screen or something like that. It's like 70% right, but the middle I would say is like 90% right. So we're not where we need to be with it, and actually we want it to look as good or better than the rest of the design. And so in order to do that, we just need to keep messing around, playing around with this torn red flag. It's a neat interface element, so we'll see about that. Again, playing around with the gem arch, not really feeling that too much. This is one of those, 2 steps forward, 1 step back situations. And honestly, in life, like, that's the way most things go that are done properly, carefully, and, with a lot of thoughtfulness and dedication. That's what I'm striving for here. So I'm not discouraged by moving backwards at all. Like, if you look at this particular stream, it looked better when we started than it does now. But you have to be okay with that kind of like creative destruction. And that term goes back to my philosophy days. That was... Schumpeter, I think, who wrote a book called The Theory of Justice. Right? I could be getting that confused, but anyway, I think that's right. Anyway, the creative destruction is an idea that the natural sort of flow of the economy, it was used in that context, is one where you go forward and then you go backwards and you go forward again. Anyway, we're done this video and we're done our talk about philosophy for now. The next video, you'll see we continue along this process of just sort of going backwards a little bit before we go forwards again. But I want to show you everything. So have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll be back at you again soon.